Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello. I'm going to give a few more minutes here until give everybody an opportunity to join.
Hmm. I am sharing something, but I'm not sure if it's being presented. Let's see. Oh, there you go. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, welcome to this session today. We have a lot of things that we want to share about Vendor Connect. This is a solution for vendor onboarding that integrates Power Platform technologies and Business Central. So before we start here, I want to introduce Chris Riera. So my name is Carlos. Let's start with myself. My name is Carlos Perez. I am the director of CRM and Power Platform. And with me today, as a co-presenter is Chris Riera, as our VP of Operations. And then we're going to be presenting the solution today. So if you're ready, Chris, feel free to introduce yourself as well
Yeah,
and start.
I appreciate it. I appreciate Carlos. Welcome everyone to this webinar as we talk about the TIG Vendor Connect, and we'll talk about what problems this solution is solving. And my name is Chris Reyes. I am the VP of Operations here at Tigunia, and I'm co-presenting with Carlos. I'll do a small portion of this. The rest is actually going to be Carlos that will be talking about the solution. So a lot of the things that we deal with in a consistent basis when implementing Business Central that typically gets looked over is the efficiency when you are onboarding a new vendor within Business Central. Now, a lot of that going to be a manual process where you would then create a new vendor in Business Central. But what happens is when you are doing a lot of this in manual process, not only it allows you to have a high risk of errors when you are entering data, especially have multiple people. A lot of that can also lead to workflow inconsistencies as well. So when you are collecting data, and it could be delayed due to the fact that you're missing information from your vendor. In addition to that, we also see this consistently in Business Central where you have duplicate vendors because the names are very similar, or they have a similar. You may have multiple buyers, things like that, that can create some duplicate data in Business Central. And then what happens is that you'd have to fix that or merge those vendors together at a later time. In addition to that, when you have multiple AP members or somebody in your organization that onboards those, there's no proper workflow. And workflow is important to stay consistent. Also allows you to help automate some of those data that you need that are required to stay in compliance. In addition to that, nobody has any idea when a vendor is fully onboarded. So, for example, your AP person may need to do some credit checks, or they may need to confirm some of the important components before you start purchasing from that vendor. And so we get that a lot in Business Central as we implement a lot of ERP, Business Central specifically, and at a later time where they want to then focus on improving that. It sometimes it's not too late, but sometimes it becomes late because you do have a lot of cleanup to do. And what happens that when you have multiple records, you have inconsistency of forecasting, and maybe doing some procurement, things like that can get pretty inconsistent. So that's what the problems is solving with this TIG Vendor Connect. So we'll be talking about that. So what it is it's a package solution that utilizes the Microsoft Power Platform. So not only from a Power Apps, Power Pages, and Power Automate, that allows you to have a lot of automation component in the back end when you are entering, and also allows you the approval to be beyond out of Business Central. Now, Business Central has the workflow approval, but utilizing Power Automate and the Power Platform gives you a lot more flexibility, where you can extend it to Microsoft Teams, you can extend it to emails, and even text messages. So we've had clients that want to utilize text messages as well. And again, it's a proper workflow where the process will be accurate and consistent across the entire process as well. So we'll be able to showcase that here as Carlos would demo that. So again, the solution is going to allow your organization to have a seamless workflow when you're onboarding your vendors, and it's consistent. So Carlos, I think it's back to you, sir.
Sure.
Vendor
Yeah,
Connect.
absolutely. So let's just start going like deeper into the different components of the solution. And then this is the general process overview. And then the idea is that the procurement officer sends a link to the vendor. And then that is going to be pointing to a Power Page that the vendor can access and then submit all the information via that Power Page. There are different configurations that we can support in that Power Page. We could just have it open where they don't have to authenticate in any way. Or if you prefer a model where the vendor has to first enable an account with a user and a password, that is also supported in the context of the Power Page. So that is optional, is more like a configuration aspect of the solution. Then once the vendor submits all the information provided in the form, then we are going to capture all that data and we're going to process it through a model-driven application. The idea with a model-driven app is that we can support there the review of the information. We can edit as needed. You can have more than one person reviewing that. You can go through a process of reviewing it and interact with the vendor in case that something else is needed before you go and send this to Business Central. So the other element that is there is that is supported to have an approval workflow where more than one individual inside the organization can participate there in the process. And then once the vendor has been reviewed and properly vetted, then you can just click a button there, and that is going to send that record and the documentation related to the record into Business Central. So it's a fairly simple process, but then we are going to have then 3 different tools that are going to be working together. As I mentioned before, we're going to have a vendor portal that then this is going to be the part of that is providing the self-service for the vendor information capture. And then we're going to capture also documents there. Then in the model-driven app, we're going to have these central locations to review and approve the vendor. And also it's very important to have role-based security that are going to allow different members of the organization to work with the vendor data. And then through Power Automate, we're going to automate, integrate the creation of those records in Business Central, reducing the need of manual entries. So I'm going to go and start with the actual demo of the solution. So everything starts here. As you can see here, I have a page that I have in certain domain that you could modify as needed. We have here a site that is totally customizable. You can put your own branding, the information that is needed for the vendor just to welcome them. We have identified that in many cases, you have several organizations inside Business Central. So you can just let the vendor know that you can just register in the same page for multiple orgs. And then you can also use that as part of the vendor information. So I'm going to go through the form. And the first thing is just to select the business central organization that the vendor is applying to. In this case, we can enable only one. And so in other scenarios, we can enable more than one at the same time. But then in this case, I'm going to pick this one. Then the rest is just basic data. They're going to be putting the vendor here for the vendor. So it's going to capture a phone number. Actually, I'm going to put a better number here. The vendor contact name, the vendor name, but in this case, let's put here ABC Electronics. And then I'm going to put it here. Here, this information. Let's put a. Now we have here an option set where we select countries. Many of our clients only use the United States, but others, they have international vendors as well. So this is a list that we can configure. And then all this backend information is going to be part of the configuration of the solution. If you know, in Business Central, we have different codes for this. So I will show you the backend of this configuration in a moment. But then the important part is all these options that you are selecting here are totally aligned with what is available in the Business Central. So I'm going to click here, the payment method. This is the first part, right? That is just the general information, the address, payment information. As you can hear, see here, we have some tax information for this vendor. I'm going to here pick the payment terms. And sometimes some organizations, they say, no, well, I'm not going to just let the vendor just pick the payment terms. So this form is totally configurable. And then you decide what is really when you want to expose to vendors. You can also add extra information as needed. So let's say that it's going to be Joe Smith. And then let's put another meeting here. And let's put a second number here. Okay, so there you go. So you have your form, that's your custom form, that is the vendor information. Then this is the other part that is very important. We have in this section as a requirement for them to attach a certain documents. And then here we just give them the information of what is the document that they should be attaching. In this case, it's a W9 form. This case, W8 for international, ACH form in case that is needed. Could be some other things. You can just elaborate your verbiage that you have here and allow them to upload the proper documentation. You can also add a limit in terms of size for the document, also a number of files that they can add. And then you can just leave this section as mandatory, or they can be as optional. So I'm going to go and I'm going to submit this. Okay, so you have the notification that the submission has been completed. You can also attach workflows to this. You can just send an email to the vendor, say, hey, thank you very much for all your information. We'll be reviewing that shortly. And this is the other side. And then on this side, we have this model-driven application that we have called here the vendor onboarding app. And then as you can see, the ABC Electronics record that I just created appears here. What it does is it will let you review all the data that comes from that form. And then it will also let you edit if needed. Here we have all the inputs that we provided. It will allow you also to generate a new vendor code. Let's say I'm going to put here something here like BD. It's up to you if you want to just leave it as a text field. You can also have auto-generated code as needed based on your nomenclature. For now, I just have it just wide open. But again, all this is customizable according to your current standards for numbering vendors. and then you can just go and assign that before you send that to Business Central. So as you can see here, you see the names and all that stuff. You can also add some extra information. If you have banking information that you want to add, this is optional. But if you want to add the bank name, the address, all that is going to be added to here. That is something that is manually entered based on the information that you're capturing in the documentation. You have also your tax information that you can validate, and then the submitter information. So I'm going to save this part. And then the other thing that you're going to see here is that the file that came from the website is also available here. So you're going to have the W-9 form, and then you can just preview here quickly the documentation. In this case, this is just an empty form, but there you have. So all the documents that the vendor submitted are going to be available here for review. You can also initiate communications from here. You can send emails, you can track some other activities with the vendor. So if there is a problem, something else that is needed. So you can track that back and forth of communications with the vendor and have that as part of the vendor application that you have here. So this is going to help you to organize the process a lot, to allow you to have all the interactions consolidated in a single place. And also, if you have multiple people interacting with this vendor, everything is going to be in this central location. The approval process for the vendor can be something that is simple, as the one that I have here. And this, you see here, you have the status reason of the vendor. You can just, if you have a process that is simple, you can just go and once you review, toggle this control to approved. If you have multiple people involved, then you can leverage Power Automate approvals. And then once you have 2 or 3 people there and all the cycle has been completed, you can configure Power Automate to toggle this one at the end of the process. So it's going to be more automated. And then you don't have to go and manually do it. You have to do it part of the output of Power Automate. So, and then once you approve this, you just need to wait a moment for it. This is going to run in the background. It's going to connect to Business Central, and then it's going to complete the process of creation of that record in Business Central. Let's give it a moment there. It takes a minute or so. In the meantime, I'm going to show you something. If you see here, this settings area, you'll see we have a Business Central payment terms. We have the federal tax classification. So if you go there, you will see all the option sets that are available in the portal are managed from here. And if you see these system IDs are the system IDs that are available in Business Central. So this is connected, and this is how you map all the options that you see in your portal with a Business Central. And that's going to be the main difference with other alternatives. We have seen some clients trying to do this with just simple Microsoft Forms, for example. But then when you do that, you don't have a model-driven application that is helping you to manage the approval process, and you don't have these mappings here. So when you try to create certain elements like payment terms or payment methods in Business Central, then it's not going to work unless you have the proper mappings and the proper codes for each of the options that are like mapping all these to Business Central. So, and again, this is just efficiency and also configurability. You don't have to bring a coder. If you add another payment term in Business Central, you just need to add it to this table. Be sure that you have the correct code, and then ready to go. This will be immediately available as part of the form, the vendor portal. And as you can see here, the account that I created, ABC Electronics, is no longer available here. Is because the process has been completed. Then you have 2 views here, like the requests that are still open. And then once you complete, then you have an inventory of all the vendors that you already have onboarded. So you see here, if you circle back to ABC Electronics, and then this is a record that is read only now, and this is part of the history of the vendors that you have onboarded. You could reopen if something happens that you need to send this again to Business Central. But again, this is going to differentiate the requests that have been completed from the ones that are still waiting for approval. Now let's go and go to Business Central. Now here in Business Central, I'm going to refresh this. Let's do a quick refresh. And there we go. So now we have ABC Electronics that has been created in Business Central. Now we have the code that I suggested from there, right? They say, hey, this is going to be the BD52347. We have all the record with all the information that we submitted from Business Central. And then also, if you see here on the right side, we have the FOW form that was submitted directly from the application. And then you can just go and download the file. And there you go. You have the PDF that we just sent from the model-driven application. And then you can continue with the process in Business Central. If you want to do something else, everything is going to be native to BC. But at least you were able to capture the information that you have in Business Central. I'm sorry, from the portal, the vendor information. Then you go to the model-driven application to review, to approve your vendor, to potentially make some modifications there. And then once all that is clear, then you just need to say, hey, that's ready to go. Go to Business Central, and there you have a vendor properly created based on the specifications that you provide. So this is basically the whole process and the whole application. As you can see, this is really a simple scenario. But again, if you don't have the solution in place, there is a lot of back and forth. There is a lot of manual entry from your form or from emails that we haven't seen a lot of organizations trying to manage this via email, and then they have to manually type everything directly into Business Central. The approval is way more complicated, and then there are plenty of points where errors can be made. So there you go. So Chris, do you have something else that you want to comment on this?
Yeah, so just to kind of reiterate a lot of our experiences with our clients that they want to improve a lot of its onboarding, especially if you have several onboarding, onboarding vendors. The feedback that we got is that it allowed them to maintain a cleaner database for their vendor. It also allows them to maintain the required attachment or required documents they need and the required fields that they need to populate as well. So they no longer have to, do a monthly or a lot of the audits where they do a lot of cleanups and merging. So it really maintained the cleanliness of their database. So we get a lot of feedback on that. So that's why we continue to invest in this application to do better. And of course, in the future, we'll be looking into some of the AI components of some of the vendor onboarding as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it, Carlos. We appreciate everyone's time. It's nice and short and sweet, but curious if anybody have any questions for Carlos and myself. Take a look at here, see if we have any Q&A.
Yeah, I believe that system can be used for existing vendors and just how this would be connected to existing vendor numbers. This is as it is. There is more thought for onboarding, but absolutely we could add an interaction with existing vendors. How that would work? The first thing is that we need to enable the integration between Business Central and the Dataverse. Let me see if that connector is here I'm not sure if this is fully configured, but I'm going to show you where it is. um, Dataverse, Dataverse connection setup. This is the one that is one. So as you can see here, it is going to allow us to connect to a Dataverse environment. And then it's going to allow us to couple tables. So what we're going to be doing is that we take all your existing vendors using this connector, and we are going to send them into a table here that is usually at the account table in Dynamics. So what this vendor table that you have here, if you have that scenario, the recommendation could be to rename it to this vendor onboarding request or vendor onboarding form, so you do not um, mistake this record for the actual vendor record. And then you have and the other table that is accounts. And then in the account record, you bring all the information that you have from Business Central. And then you can enable that this is just a one-way or a two-way integration. And then that is the first part, to have all your vendors records available in the Dataverse. The other thing is on the portal side, with that scenario, you can also now enable a login for vendors. So you can have a button here that says, hey, login with your user and password, and then they can, let's say, update their account. If they already have a vendor account with you, and what they need to do is either change the banking information or attach new documentation, it's going to be handled in a context of, oh, I already have an account. I'm just going to update. And then those updates can be also handled the same way here. You can just go and review them here in business in a model-driven application. And once they are approved, then they can be synchronized to Business Central. So it's in a scenario where it's a little bit more complex, but it's totally supported thanks to the integration with the Dataverse, between the Dataverse and Business Central, that can be do either unidirectional or bidirectional.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. And I think that also answered the second question there about updates or changing the information. There's another question here, Carlos, about how vendor authentication works and where's authentication managed.
Oh, that's a good question. So there are like different options for vendor authentication. You can just select in the Power page first an authentication that is Dataverse based. It means that in the Dataverse record that you have, let's say for the vendor, you set a user and password locally in the Dataverse, and then you have to do that management. You can auto generate a password, but it's locally stored in the Dataverse. That is the most basic scenario. The most common use is using Azure Active Directory there or Entra for third-party authentication. So you could also have or leverage that external authentication provider, so they can just log in with their own Active Directory account, and then that is going to be how that is authenticated. That is a good way to go, because that is going to guarantee that the person that is logging into the vendor account actually works for that organization, because it is connected to an Entra ID or that is managed by their own organization. So that is secure. And the other option is third-party authentication providers, that could be Microsoft, using a Microsoft account, and even a Facebook account. That is also one of the options there.
All right, thanks, Carlos. There is a comment about in the chat. This is on the vendor side. Could you also do this on the customer onboarding for BC?
Customer onboarding, absolutely. It's just a game of tables, but yes, absolutely the same account table that we have in the Dataverse that is holding the vendors. We can also support there to holding customers. They are going to be differentiated by a field that is called the relationship type. So in the same table, you have vendors and customers. What is different in Business Central, but that is something that comes also with integration with a dynamic CRM. In CRM, we only have one table for organizations, that is the account table. In Business Central, you have two. But again, all that is manageable, and then you will do the same way. You create in this case an account record that is relationship type equal customer. You receive that in the model driven application. You explore all or go through all the approval process or onboarding process of your client, and then once you're ready, then you just click the approval button, and then it goes to Business Central.
All right, thank you, Carlos. There's another comment in here too. Is it easy to set up, or it's easy to add or remove fields in the vendor app? How is this done?
Well, a couple things to consider there. Absolutely. Actually, let me show you a little bit of the back end. Let me see. Let me go here. So we have all the apps, let's say Vendor Connect. So this is the package that contains all the pieces of our app. As you can see, we have multiple things. So if you have, for example, the vendor app, and yeah, this is the place where it's holding all the fields that are available in the model-driven application for vendors. So if you need to add a new column there, then you can just come here and define the column and all the properties, what is the type of field that you need to add. And then the other thing that you have to do is to put this, you have, for example, you have a form that is just for the portal. So if you want to modify or add that in the portal, you come here, and from the same place, you modify all the information that is being shown in the portal. As you can see, this is a structure of what you saw in the portal. You can just come here and drag and drop new fields there and configure certain properties there. So as you can see, it's pretty simple to manage by an administrator with the right permissions. Same thing for the security roles. If you have vendor management admin versus a vendor management that is a manager that is not approving versus someone that is doing the approvals, so you can manage all your security roles as well. You can also, from here, you can configure all your workflows for approvals, for connection with Business Central. So this is highly configurable. We have multiple options to configure depending of the scenario. The portal also has a place to kind of modify the look and feel of this portal. This is also something that is there available, and then it's also fairly simple to configure as well. So it's pretty friendly. You don't need a developer. Now, if you have, the other thing is, Power Automate is going to consume the Business Central API to send information to Business Central. So Microsoft has published only certain fields for vendors. There are fields that are not out of the box available. So what we have received in certain projects is that the client wants to add extra information that is not by default in that API. So what we do is that we create a custom API in Business Central, and then we expose either the tables that are needed or the fields on the vendor table that are not there out of the box, either because they are custom or just because are not there. So that one, it will require an extension to modify that, or actually to create a new API to include those. But I would say that is the most complex thing that we do in this context. But it's not really complex. It just requires someone that knows how to do that. But that's pretty much it. So yeah, all that is configurable, and some extra things can be added too. Do we have
Carlos, I think
some more questions?
I think those are the only questions, comments. Let me take a look to see if there's any additional Q&A. No, I think that's pretty much it.
Someone is typing, I believe.
Yeah, someone's typing. Let's see.
That's a good question. So we have a pricing that is a standard, but again, we like to understand individual needs. But as a general rule for pricing, what we have is an onboarding fee, and then we have a license that is by users of the model-driven application. And that is assuming that you already have your own business central licensing. That is not part of the solution. That is assuming that you already have some VPC licenses, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, so there's some prerequisites, of course, for your Business Central license. Yeah, as Carlos has noted, and of course, a licensing for the Power Platform that is required. We do manage and maintain this solution as well. So as new features come in, we would also provide that maintenance of the solution. As we all know, Microsoft themselves release new functionalities on a monthly basis, and also wave releases, very similar to Business Central. So Power Platform gets the same love in that aspect. So we help manage the solution here for you, which also rolls into that licensing as
Right.
well.
Now, the other thing, the other aspect that you need to consider for pricing is that the price that we have that is a standard is going to be for this version of the solution. Now, if we need to add things, let's say, hey, now I want to do it for existing vendors, I want to do it for customers as well. All that is doable. We will have to really review your requirement and then estimate really the changes that are needed, and that's going to be included in your offer. So if you really want to know more or you have a special requirements, let's talk about it, and we can have a one-to-one conversation, and then we can show you all the details about pricing of the standard version and what is needed to really match your requirements if you have something that is not already here. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, we'll give a few more minutes here to see if there's any other questions. Yeah, looks like someone wants to set that up. Yeah, if you want to email, is it just Carlos at Carlos C Perez at tigunia.com? Yeah, I would be more than happy to coordinate with you and have that conversation where this would fit.
Yeah, I'm putting my email there in the chat. Feel free to do it. Send me an email. I cannot see your name in the chat. It says attendee and verified for me. So please reach out, and then we can schedule something as soon as possible.
All right.
Right.
I don't
So,
see anything else. That sounds good. Well, wonderful job, Carlos. I appreciate you demoing the TIG Vendor Connect. If you have any questions, yeah, email cperez@tigunia.com or connect@tigunia.com and just reference the TIG Vendor Connect webinar, and then you'll get routed to the to Carlos himself. So appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
thank you.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.